My name is Evelyn Carter, and I am 32 years old. I live in the beautiful town of Lakeside, Montana, where the scenery often takes your breath away. The snow-capped mountains loom majestically over the sparkling waters of Flathead Lake, a tranquil place where nature thrums with life and the air carries whispers of secrets among the trees. I was proud to call this place home, but my pride was overshadowed by a darkness that fed on my disappointments. For years, I worked as a therapist in a juvenile detention facility for boys. Contrary to what many might assume, it was not the boys who made my job difficult. Rather, it was the adults surrounding me. My heart ached for those boys, some of whom had endured unimaginable hardships. I believed I could make a real difference in their lives, providing them with the tools they needed to heal and forge ahead. Unfortunately, the same could not be said for the people I worked with. The majority of my colleagues, along with the management, saw therapy as a joke, a waste of resources. They rolled their eyes every time I introduced a new method or expressed concern for the boys' emotional well-being. My heart burned for the neglected boys, but I was powerless against the toxic culture surrounding me. One day, everything came crashing down when I took a stand against a man working in the facility. He had crossed a line, and I could not turn a blind eye. I filed a sexual harassment complaint against him, unaware that he was related to the person running the facility, the very person who was supposed to uphold the ethics of our work. Nothing came of that complaint, as I had feared. Instead, I found myself painted as a villain among my coworkers. Public enemy number one, they called me. I became the subject of gossip, my integrity questioned, and my very purpose for being there was minimized to mere annoyance for those around me. I felt alone in my fight, and doubting shadows crept into my every waking moment. Days turned into weeks, and the world outside changed dramatically with the arrival of the pandemic. The atmosphere grew tense and unsettling. I had to focus on work and doing my best for the boys, even as the tension among the staff grew thick. I kept my head down, determined not to let their disdain involve the young men I was there to help. But I could not shake the feeling of unease. Then came a wave of realization that I could no longer endure the toxic workplace. It was late June when I decided to leave. Many of the boys would soon be transitioning out of the program, and it felt right to stay until the end of July. I was dedicated to helping them adjust, ensuring that my departure would not leave them in the lurch. When I informed the head of the therapists, she appeared grateful, almost relieved. "It is very kind of you to give us this time," she told me. I nodded, but inside I felt a sense of disconnect growing, like a thread unraveling from a well-worn fabric. However, just a few days later, my sense of control swiftly faded. I was called into a meeting on Friday, just a few short days after offering my intended exit plan. They had accepted my resignation, effective immediately, and I was informed I could leave right then and there. My heart sank, but I managed to keep a courteous smile. They had no idea of the plans I'd made, the way I knew I could achieve my own kind of justice. I realized then that I could turn the tables simply by remaining silent. I was escorted from the building, my boxes packed, my departure occupied with polite small talk. It was all so surreal. A twist of fate cast me out, but I was aware that this was not the end. They thought they were rid of me, rid of my contributions to those boys, my efforts so unjustly discarded. What they did not understand was that I had kept everything I needed hidden away, files left securely locked behind the password of my computer. They would never have access to everything I had worked so hard to gather: the personal stories, the progress charts, all the hopes I had nurtured for my boys. A month passed. I had found a new, peaceful rhythm in my life away from the chaos. I even met up with my friends from the facility for lunch, eager to hear how they were faring without me. To my surprise, they shared bits of gossip and news that only deepened my resolve. The head therapist had taken over my caseload and quickly realized the burden of keeping up with my work was too much. She ended up leaving, disheartened after just 3 months in the position. The therapists left in her wake had to rewrite a ton of paperwork, as my meticulously organized files were inaccessible to them. It felt good to hear their struggles, knowing that my absence caused a ripple that disrupted their ill intentions. As the discussions wore on, it seemed like a graceful dance turned chaotic. The staff that remained began to vacate the facility, not that I blamed them. No one wanted to endure the toxic environment any longer. It was as if the building itself had fallen into disrepair, and the irony did not escape me. And when I heard that the administration resorted to rehiring a previous therapist who was deeply unfavored by the boys, Laughter bubbled up from within me. The ultimate betrayal was that this particular therapist had been cruel to me during my tenure. I relished in the idea of how things might unravel for her. Fate had a wicked sense of humor. Meanwhile, I had found focus on my own pursuits, but then one day I received a friend request on Facebook. I did not recognize the name at first, glancing over the profile until it hit me. It was the husband of that very therapist who had treated me poorly. The universe was giving me a shot at revenge wrapped tightly within everyday life. He began to flirt right away, sending compliments and messages that ignited a sinister delight within me. I decided to let it unfold a bit longer before I took action. I thought about what would happen the moment I revealed the nature of our conversation to his wife. What chaos could that cause in their lives? When the time was right, I captured screenshots of his messages and sent them along with a direct message to her, one simple line stating, "I thought you ought to know." The moment of satisfaction when I hit send brought a rush of power. I imagined the confrontation that might ensue, the awkwardness, the shouting. All those emotions that had once weighed me down began to fade. I considered the spirals of retribution I had woven all along, how they would echo through their lives like ripples on a pond. Fast forward another month. I had moved on, but I noticed a darker shift in the air. People were talking again, whispers lingering like shadows. The therapy department had disintegrated beyond repair. I felt an odd sense of fulfillment knowing I had enacted my silent vengeance, that the system failed without those of us who cared. The consequences of their own actions had led to their downfall, and I couldn't help but marvel at the poetic justice at play. Months later, as I strolled through the picturesque streets of Lakeside, adorned with autumn foliage, I felt lighter, ready to embrace a new chapter. A handful of my old colleagues had finally reached out, recognizing my resilience and growth after the circumstances that had contrived to push me out. They spoke of how the administration was struggling to fill the vacant therapist positions and systems were collapsing. I felt empowered by the knowledge that my silence had been a sufficient response, a quiet act of rebellion that caused chaos, proving that those who underestimate the value of compassion ultimately reap the repercussions of their disdain. But it was not all roses and sunshine. I could not erase the painful memories of my time there. They would linger, reminders of why I chose to sever ties. So here I stand, a woman refined by the heat of adversity, navigating this new landscape of my life. I had confronted my circumstances quietly, wielding silence as my weapon. Lakeside felt different now, filled with renewed hope and possibility. Even if I could never heal those past wounds, I knew that I was on a path toward becoming something bigger, something beyond those confines they had tried to impose upon me. I dared to dream of helping more than ever before. My heart carried the scars, but they only served as a testament to my strength and resolve. In the end, I had learned that silence could speak volumes, and sometimes holding your tongue can be the loudest form of vengeance.